The International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia is now in session. L'audience du Tribunal Pénal International pour l'ex-Yougoslavie est ouverte. Please be seated.
Monsieur le greffier appelé.
Le registrar, can you call the case, please?
Your Honours, this is case number IT0367T, the prosecutor versus Vojislav Šešelj.
Merci, monsieur.
Thank you, Registrar. Today is Monday, the 7th of March 2012, 5th of March 2012. I'd like to greet all the people present in the courtroom, Mr. Markussen and his associates, Mr. Šešelj, as well as all as the people assisting us in this courtroom. I must apologize. We are running slightly late for a reason which was out of my control. In the decision we issued a while ago, we specified that the prosecution would have 10 hours for its closing arguments, and the defense, represented by Mr. Šešelj, will also have 10 hours. So in this week, we shall address the closing arguments of the prosecution, and during the second week we will address the closing arguments of the defense. That said, Mr. Markussen, I shall now give you the floor.
Thank you, Your Honours. Your Honours, before I start, I would like to inform the trial chamber that for the prosecution, the counsel who will be appearing will be, in addition to myself, Ms. Birsay, who's with me here today. We will also have Mr. Müssemeyer, Ms. Hochhauser, Ms. Iudice, and Mr. Traldi. We are not having the full prosecution team in court for logistical reasons, so counsel will be appearing as they are required to make their arguments. I will also inform the chamber that the prosecution will not be needing 10 hours for its arguments.
I have an objection.
Yes.
And judges, I believe that 5 representatives of the OTP who will be presenting closing arguments are too few. I think that at least one should handle each hour of their arguments because they are unable to speak reasonably and make sense for longer than 1 hour.
Faire son réquisitoire, ils le font comme ils veulent.
The closing arguments of the prosecution are conducted in a way in which the prosecution wishes. Please proceed, Mr. Markussen.
Thank you, Your Honours. Your Honours, exactly 20 years ago today, on the 5th of March, 1992, the accused vowed that the Serbian Radical Party was ready to oppose, with all means available, Bosnia and Herzegovina from becoming independent. He threatened that if it declared independence, there would be, quote, rivers of blood on Bosnia and Herzegovina's soil. That is from Exhibit P 1324. The day after the accused threat, Bosnia and Herzegovina declared independence. By the end of March, 20 years ago, rivers of blood flowed in Bosnia and Herzegovina the same way they had flowed in Croatia after it had declared independence. The accused's threat of rivers of blood became brutal reality for witness VS 1064. VS 1064 was 22 years old. He was born and lived in Kościerewo, Zvornik. No one had ever looked at him differently because he was a Muslim until the war broke out in Croatia, and Serbs in Bosnia and Herzegovina started to prepare for war. In April 1992, Serb forces attacked and cleansed Zvornik town of its non-Serb population. Only a few non-Serb villages within the municipality still remained to be cleansed. One of them was Kościerewo. The inhabitants from the village were promised that nothing would happen to them. So, when the JNA ordered them to surrender their hunting weapons, they did so. But on the 30th of May, 1992, the army attacked their village. They did not fight back. Nonetheless, the inhabitants were forced out of their homes, and the men were separated from the women and children. The women and children were expelled to Muslim-held areas. VS 1064 was alone there with his father and his 3 brothers. One of them was only 17 years old. Serb TO forces detained them and the other men in the Drinjata Dom Kultura. The prisoners were given no food, no water. The guards humiliated them. They forced them to make the Serb Orthodox 3-finger salute to be allowed to use the bathroom, but humiliation was nothing compared to what was to come. Soon, a group of Arkan's men stormed in to the Dom Kultura. They forced the prisoners to sing Chetnik songs, and to insult them, they called them Belia and Eustacia. They beat them. VS 1064, his father and brother, all the men were beaten by Arkan's men. They beat the prisoners with batons and stabbed them. They beat the prisoners with batons and stabbed them. They beat the prisoners so badly that one of them begged, quote, "Give me a rifle to kill myself. I can't take it anymore." End of quote. After stabbing one of the prisoners, the leader of the group, with a bloody knife still in his hand, threatened, quote, "You will see what the Chetniks are this evening." End of quote. Then Arkan's men left. In the evening, a group of Cherchelyevsi arrived. VS 1064 recalled that he was so scared that he did not dare to look at them, fearing that if their eyes met, they would harm him. They started to select detainees and took them out in small groups. After each group was taken out, VS 1064 heard gunfire. The men were taken out, but they did not come back. The Cherchelyevsi did come back. Then it was VS 1064's turn. He was taken out with other men from his village. The Cherchelyevsi started shooting. VS 1064 fell to the ground wounded. The shooting stopped, and the Cherchelyevsi started to celebrate, firing into the air. As soon as they left back inside, VS 1064 managed to get up and run away. He saw a small group of people lying on the concrete nearby. They were all dead. All dead except for one, who was calling out for his mother. After the war, the victims of the massacre were exhumed. VS 1064 identified the remains of his father and 3 brothers among the 88 corpses. This case is about the accused's responsibility for the crimes committed against VS 1064 and all the other victims of the crimes in Vukovar, Zvornik, Greater Sarajevo, Mostar, Nevesinje, and Hrtkopci that have been proven in this case. The evidence proves, beyond a reasonable doubt, that the crimes set out in the indictment have been established. Specifically, tens of thousands of innocent non-Serb civilians, primarily Croats and Muslims, were forcibly transferred and deported. Croats and Muslims who were not expelled were detained under inhumane conditions. They were beaten, tortured, raped, or submitted to other sexual violence. 905 persons were killed, most in organized massacres or in detention facilities. Croat and Muslim property was looted and wantonly destroyed, and religious sites were destroyed and desecrated. Croat and Muslims were persecuted through acts such as dismissal from their work, deprivation of pensions, and measures to prevent them from returning to their homes after they had been expelled. The accused physically committed crimes in Vukovar and Hrtkopci, and he is responsible for crimes carried out by Serb forces, including Šešeljevci, during the persecutorial campaign in Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina as a member of a joint criminal enterprise. The evidence also proves that the accused instigated and aided and abetted the perpetrators of the crimes charged in the indictment. The prosecution's closing argument will address the following issues. First, we will show that the accused was a member of a joint criminal enterprise to commit the crimes charged in the indictment. I will be presenting the prosecution's argument about the existence of the joint criminal enterprise. Ms. Birsay will address the accused's contribution to the joint criminal enterprise and to the crimes by inciting the crimes and aiding and abetting the perpetrators of the crimes. Second, we will address the crimes charged in the indictment. Ms. Hochhauser will cover Vukovar. Mr. Müsemeyer will deal with evidence relating to so-called pattern municipalities in Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. Ms. Ayudisha will address your honors regarding Zvornik and Greater Sarajevo. Mr. Traldi will cover 2 municipalities as well, Mostar and Nevesinje. And Ms. Birsay will deal with the accused's crimes in Hrtkopci. Finally, I will conclude and present the prosecution's argument on sentencing. So I turn now to the prosecution's argument regarding the JCE alleged in the indictment. Your Honours, the evidence proves beyond a reasonable doubt that the accused participated in the preparation and execution of a joint criminal enterprise. Its common purpose was to forcibly create ethnically separated territories in Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. Its common purpose was implemented from at least August 1991, when Serb forces engaged in a massive persecutorial campaign against non-Serbs, mainly Croats and Muslims, in Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. The crimes in Vukovar, Zvornik, Greater Sarajevo, Mostar and Nevesinje were part of this persecutorial campaign. They were committed by Serb forces under the command of or controlled by members of the joint criminal enterprise. Many of the most savage crimes were committed by Serb volunteers, recruited, organized, and deployed by the accused. His volunteers were notorious for their brutality and crimes, and his volunteers were so closely associated with him that they were commonly known as Szczecielewcy, Szczeciel's men. Szczecielewcy participated in and committed crimes in all the crime-based municipalities charged in the indictment. JNA forces also participated in and committed crimes, which have been proven in this case. JCE member Slobodan Milosevic, the President of the Republic of Serbia, controlled the JNA. JCE members and JNA generals Veljko, Kadejevic, and Blagoje Adjic were the most senior officers in the JNA. Members of the Special Operation Unit of the Serbian MUP, known as the Red Berets, were also participants in and perpetrators of crimes. Milosevic also controlled the Serbian MUP and worked closely with JCE members Jovica Stanisic, Chief of the State Security Service of the Serbian MUP, and his deputy, Franko Simatovic, also known as Frankie. And the Serbian MUP cooperated closely with JCE member Željko Račnatović, known as Arkan. He controlled a paramilitary organization called Arkan's Men, or Arkan's Tigers, who also participated in and perpetrated crimes in the indictment. In Croatia, members of local Serb police and territorial defense forces participated crimes. They were under the control of JCE members Goran Hadžić, Prime Minister of the SAO of Slovenia, Baranja, and Western Srem, President of the government of the same SAO, and later President of the RSK, the Republic of Serbian Krajina. JCE member Radovan Stojišić, also known as Bacha, was a MUP commander in the SAO of SBWS in 1991. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, members of local Serb police forces and territorial defense forces, as well as members of the Army of Republika Srpska, the VIS, perpetrated and participated in crimes. They were under the command and control of JCE member Radovan Karadzic, the president of the SDS in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and from the 12th of May 1992, president of the presidency of the Republic of Republika Srpska, the RS. JCE member Biljana Plavšić was a member of the RS presidency. JCE member Momčilo Krajsnik, the president and speaker of the Serb Assembly of the RS, also had control over these forces. And finally, JCE member Ratko Mladic was the commander of the main staff of the VIS. The participation of all these forces in the crimes charged in the indictment was a result of close cooperation between these JCE members, as well as others, such as JCE member Radomil Bogdanovic, who facilitated the arming of Serbs in both Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. The crimes were committed by these forces because the accused and other JCE members were united by a common goal, the creation of a Serb state, as I will now discuss. Uniting Serbs in one Greater Serbia was a vision that the accused had long nurtured, and it was a pillar of his political program. As part of his political platform, the accused revived the Chetnik ideology and militaristic traditions from the First and Second World Wars. The Chetnik movement's core goal boiled down to a struggle for territorial control over Greater Serbia and the expulsion of non-Serbs from targeted areas to ensure Serb dominance. To publicize and advance his goal of a Greater Serbia, the accused published a magazine, Velika Serbia, which means Greater Serbia. On the cover of the first issue of Velika Serbia was a map of Greater Serbia. It is in evidence as Exhibit P38. Exhibit P26 which should now be shown on the screen. Now it's up. Shows the accused's vision of his Greater Serbia. It includes present-day Serbia, Macedonia, Montenegro, Kosovo, Bosnia and Herzegovina, as well as much of Croatia. As he said in Exhibit P1175, the accused wanted to amputate Croatia at what he claimed to be the old Serbian border running between the towns of Karlovac, Ogulin, Karlovac, and Mitrovica, the KOKV line. Could we have the map of it, please? Could you put the map on? Thank you. If your honors look at the upper left part, we seem to be having some technical issues. If I may turn your honors' attention back to the map. If your honors look at the upper left part of the map on your screen, the KOKV line is the border between the area shaded in red and the area shaded in brown. The accused also engaged in a vicious and relentless propaganda campaign against non-Serbs, including Croatians and Muslims, as well as Kosovo Albanians. He claimed that Serbs had a historic right to the territory of Greater Serbia. He denigrated and dehumanized non-Serbs. He equated Croatians to Ustaša fascists who had committed crimes against Serbs, and Bosnian Muslims to Ottoman Turks that he said had subjugated Serbs for hundreds of years. He claimed that Serbs was under an imminent threat of genocide at the hands of Croats and the enslavement by Muslims. He repeatedly raised the specter of crimes against Serbs during the Second World War, and he called for blind revenge in which rivers of blood would flow. Today, the accused's message is clear. 2 decades ago, against the backdrop of increased violence, escalating tension, and ultimately war that tore the former Yugoslavia apart, the accused's message was even clearer. He called for crimes to be committed against Croats and Muslims, so his Chetnik vision of a Greater Serbia could be realized. The accused also revived the Chetnik militaristic organization under the umbrella of his political activities. In 1989, he received the Chetnik military title traditionally bestowed on Chetnik leaders, Voivoda, from Second World War Chetnik leader Mumcelu Jujic. The accused established the Serbian Chetnik movement, which we will refer to with the acronym SCP. In 1991, the accused incorporated the SCP into his new party, the Serbian Radical Party, the SRS. The SCP became the military wing of the SRS. He then created a crisis staff and later turned it into a war staff, through which he recruited and deployed his volunteers, the Sheshelyevsi. His military persona extended to the front lines, where he wore military uniform and visited his Sheshelyevsi. Your Honours now have on the screen before you Exhibit P-184. You see the accused in uniform wearing a helmet, and he's surrounded by other people in uniform. And on the helmet of the accused, you see a white eagle. This white eagle is a traditional Serb symbol. The accused has at times challenged witnesses who associated Sheshelyevsi with the white eagle symbols, because there existed another paramilitary formation with the name White Eagles. This picture shows that the symbol was also used by the SIS. Indeed, as the accused explained in Exhibit P-185 at page 1, his Sheshelyevsi scratched the communist symbol of the five-pointed star off armored helmets and drew white eagles in their place. I will refer Your Honour's attention to the person to the left of the accused in the front of the picture, who wears a cap. At transcript page 6046, witness VS7 identified this person as Milan Lanchuchanin, also known as Kameni, who led the Sheshelyevsi in Vukovar and was one of the key perpetrators of the massacre at Ovchara. This evidence clearly shows that the accused was ready to pursue his Greater Serbia by all means available, as he said 20 years ago. And soon he would be able to do so. When communism lost its legitimacy in the late 1980s, nationalists in the republics that formed the former Yugoslavia began to seek independence. First in Slovenia and Croatia, and soon also in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Many Serb leaders opposed this prospect. They were especially determined to prevent independence of the republics of Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, because it would separate Serbs by international borders and leave sizable groups of Serbs as minorities in Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. To avoid separating Serbs in different states, they sought to turn much of Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina into Serb-dominated territory. These efforts manifested themselves in the creation of Serb autonomous regions, or SAOs, in Croatia and later Bosnia and Herzegovina. The efforts were supported by Milosevic, who had risen to power on a Serb nationalist agenda and was seen as a protector and patron of Serbs outside the Republic of Serbia. As noted by the trial chamber in its adjudicated fact decision of 10th of December 2007, facts number 48 to 50. I will in the following be referring to this decision as AF1. The accused and Milosevic recognized their common nationalist agenda and set aside their political differences. The accused explained during the indictment period, quote, "It is not important how Milosevic's regime treated me in the past. What's most important is how he handles Serb national interest today." That is from Exhibit P1215, page 8. They pursued this common goal by establishing Serb autonomous regions and Serb military forces which fought for the control of those regions. The creation of the SAOs formalized the Serb nationalist territorial aspirations by declaring parts of Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina to be Serb land. They were the first step towards an all-Serb nation. Your Honours have in front of you now on the screen a map which shows the different SAOs that were declared and the way they looked before the war broke out. Leaders of the Serbian Democratic Party, or the SDS in Croatia, declared SAOs in 3 targeted areas in Krajina, in Western Slavonia, in Slavonia, Baranja, and Western Srem. Leaders of these SAOs included JCE members Milan Babic and Goran Hadjic. Milan Babic was the president of the SAO of Krajina, which Your Honours can see is the big turquoise area to the left, which is now being indicated on the screen. And Goran Hadjic was the president of the SAO of SBWS, which is on the opposite side, over here, where it's now being indicated. In Bosnia, the colored areas represent the different SAOs that were declared there. JCE member Radovan Karadzic, the president of the SDS in Bosnia and Herzegovina, explained the objective of these SAOs. He declared that if Bosnia and Herzegovina left Yugoslavia, quote, "the only option is Greater Serbia." That is in Exhibit P877, paragraph 39. Karadzic repeated his call for Greater Serbia in February 1992 in Exhibit P503. And the accused recognized that the SDS had the same goal of creating a single Serb state. That can be seen, for instance, is in Exhibit P1248 at page 4. I will now indicate on the same map, Your Honours, where the crime-based locations in this indictment are found. As well as the so-called pattern municipalities. The red dots indicate the crime-based areas in the indictment. So Vukovar is situated in the SBWS, close to the border with Serbia, on the river Drina. No, that's incorrect. My apologies. Down in Bosnia, Zvornik is situated close to the border with Serbia on the Drina River. As your honors can see on this map, this is in a gray area indicated on the map, which means that this was not initially part of the SAOs. Also, the area around Sarajevo where crimes were committed is in a gray area, which was not part of the SAOs yet. And Mostar, similarly, was not part of the SAOs. But together with Nevesinje, Berchko, and Bilina, and Bosanski Shamac, all these locations were in strategic, important places, and therefore, when the war broke out in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serb forces took these areas and expelled non-Serbs from them. And this evidence proves that the accused and other Serb leaders in Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina shared the common purpose of creating a Serb-dominated territory in these targeted areas and beyond. Because of their aspiration for a Serbian state, the accused supported Serb leaders in Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. The accused established his Serbian Radical Party in February 1991 and committed the party to support the STS. That can be seen in Exhibit P153 at page 13, where he specifically mentioned that the SIS is willing to support the STS in Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. And so he did. In March 1991, for example, the accused traveled to Krajina to lend support to JCE member Babic and called for a Serbian Krajina where, quote, there is no room for Ustasha. That is from Exhibit P335 at page 1. In the SBWS, he held rallies and met with local Serb leaders to discuss organizing Serb military forces in the area. He then deployed Šešeljevci to, for example, Borovo Selo at their request. That can be seen in exhibits P55 and P1277, and the testimony of witness VS4. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, the accused met with JCE member Karadzic to discuss the taking over of targeted areas, and he lauded Karadzic in his speeches. That can be seen in exhibits P1003, P1339, P1176, and others. He later described their meetings saying, quote, we knew then that it would come what it, my apologies, Jonas, we knew then that it would come to a conflict, to a war. In any case, I had already met with my Chetniks there. We had a detailed map of the eastern part of Mostia in front of us, and we were considering actions for a takeover of Visegrad. Visegrad Bridge, Zvornik, etc. At the time, it was obvious that there was going to be war, end quote. And that is from Exhibit P1246 at page 3. Serb leaders in Croatia sought military assistance from the accused. In Exhibit P31, the accused admitted that he sent Szczecielewski to the SAO Krajina at the request of JCE member Babic. From 1991 to 1992, JCE members Hadjic and Matic traveled to the SIS War Staff office in Belgrade to request volunteers. This is in Exhibit P1074 at paragraph 46. Local TO leaders also requested, I believe I said page 46, and I should have said paragraph 46. 86. Local TO leaders also requested that the accused deploy Szczecielewski to support their forces. In the crime bases and pattern municipalities in Croatia, the accused responded directly to such requests. When the Vukovar TO sent the SIS War Staff a request for Szczecielewski, the accused decided that the SIS should send, quote, as many volunteers as possible. That is in Exhibit C11 at page 14. Szczecielewski were deployed to Western Slavonia, where Vucin, one of our pattern municipalities, is located, upon the request from local TO forces. That is in the testimony of VS 4 and VS 33, and in Exhibit P223. Many other local leaders in Croatia also requested fighters from the accused. This can be seen, for instance, in Exhibits P942 in relation to Sisak, P264 in relation to Okuchani, P239 in relation to Novska, and P226 Podravska Slatina. And these deployments of Szczecielewski were supported by the Serbian MUP. The accused cooperated with the Serbian MUP through witness Petkovic, as he stated in Exhibit P644 at page 9. Petkovic described this cooperation in his evidence. He had numerous meetings with JCE member Stanisic and JCE member Simatovic, as witness Stefanovic confirms. Through the MUP, Szczecielewski were later deployed to Vukovar, received training at a center in Lipovac, outside Siet in Serbia, which was organized by the Serbian MUP. This can be seen in witness Rankic's evidence. And JCE member Arkan, who was affiliated with the State Security Service of the MUP of Serbia, provided logistical support to Szczecielewski at his base in Erdut in eastern Slavonia. The accused personally brought Szczecielewski to Erdut and addressed the volunteers, telling them that, quote, Ustasha should be killed and expelled. This is in Exhibit P528, paragraph 32, and also in supporting evidence found in Exhibits P921 at page 2, P1257 at page 30, and in evidence by witness Rankic found in Exhibit P1074 at paragraphs 85 and 86. Milosevic also provided large-scale assistance to local Serb forces. Through his trusted men in the Serbian MUP, JCE members Stanisic, Simatovic, and Bogdanovic, Milosevic provided military support to Serb leaders in Krajina, and local police forces were trained and armed. They promised JCE member Babic 20,000 guns. In the SAO SBWS, Milosevic and Bogdanovic gave the local Serb TO weapons. Those weapons were passed on to Shashilievsi, who had been deployed to the SBWS, evidencing the close support between JCE members in Belgrade, locally in various areas in Croatia, and the accused. This evidence is found in Exhibits P1137 at pages 115 to 16, and in Exhibit P1252 at page 3, and in Exhibit P644. The Serbian MUP also participated in acts of provocation to engage Croat forces in conflict. After the conflict erupted, the JNA would enter supposedly to calm the situation. In reality, once the clash was over, the JNA would secure Serb territorial gains. This is found again in Exhibit P1137 at page 9, 92, and to page 94. In Exhibit P1, thought there was a comment, I'm sorry. In Exhibit P412, pages 1 to 4, and in transcript page 3968, which is expert witness Toinen's testimony. From the second half of 1991, the Republic of Serbia intensified its practical assistance to Croatia in the form of weapons, communication equipment, and other supplies to Serbs in Croatia. It also reveals that the Republic of Serbia was financing the salaries and pension contribution of approximately 50,000 Serb TO members throughout the SAO, Krajina, SAO, Western Slavonia, and the SAO of SBWS. This is found in Exhibit P932. Moreover, the Serbian MUP also created its own special police unit that I've mentioned before to carry out the common purpose of the JCE members, known to many as the Red Berets. In Exhibit P131, which is a video, Stanisic, Slobodan Milosevic, and Simatovic are seen proudly discussing their accomplishment during the war. In this unique video, which we will be showing in a moment, these key JCE members celebrate their common accomplishments in pursuit of the persecutorial campaign in Croatia and in Bosnia. Your Honours will see Sematovic explains that the Red Berets were deployed extensively throughout Croatia and Bosnia, as he says, throughout the entire Serb ethnic area. And he'll also explain that the unit was created in May of 1991.
Ja ništa ne čujem.
I can't hear a thing.
Ja sam vama rekao,
As I've told you, Your Honours, there's a lot of material to present and too few people from the prosecution. They're just not capable of pulling this off as they should. How many mistakes they've already made.
Your Honours, we are waiting for the technical problems to be resolved, I think.
dok čekamo...
While we are waiting, Your Honours, are you not ashamed to see that there are 5 people appearing on behalf of the prosecution and I am on my own? On behalf of defense, it is just me. It seems that this is something that you find okay, that you like it, actually.
Yeah,
Your Honours, I propose we continue without seeing the video. That can be reviewed by the Chamber at its leisure during deliberation. I would note that in this video, Stanisic describes the extensive operations of the Red Berets. He explained, for example, that the unit had operations in 50 locations. They had 26 training centers for local Serb forces, and they included training centers in areas of particular interest to this case, namely Vukovar, Bijeljina, Bosanski Shamac, Brčko, and Trebinje, that Your Honours will be hearing more about during the prosecution's arguments. It also explains that the unit set up and operated a network of airfields. This reward ceremony took place at a location which was named after what was described as a distinguished member of the unit, Radoslav Kostic. And Your Honours will be hearing more about him and his involvement in arming of local Serbs, both in Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, and notably in the Zvornik area later on in the prosecution submissions. Now, the accused not only provided support to the local TOs in Croatia during this period and cooperated with the Serbian MUP. The accused also provided significant support to the JNA. Their coordinated efforts to train, arm and deploy Cherchilevsky are discussed in paragraphs 100 to 106 of the prosecution's closing brief. As the conflict in Croatia developed, the JNA became a Serb army under Milosevic's control. By the summer of 1991, the JNA leadership accepted Milosevic's directions, quote, without any discussion. This is found in Exhibit P 198 at page 6. And it adopted a new nationalist goal. As JCE member Kadejevic stated in his book about the breakup of the former Yugoslavia, this new mission of the JNA became to, quote, to protect the Serb people. Your Honors, I believe we now have the audio on, but at least I have it in my headphone, so I propose we don't need it. Yeah, I think there are no...
Gospodo sudije, ja...
Your Honors, I could help them with the technical problem if they can't do it, because I'm very well versed in all that.
Your Honors,
vous avez parlé du livre de...
You mentioned General Kadizevic's book. What is the number of the document, please?
that is Exhibit P196. And I will now quote from page 73 of that exhibit. At that place, General Kadejevic explains what the new mission of the JNA had become. It had become to, quote, to protect the Serb people in Croatia in such a way that all regions with a majority Serb population would be completely free from the presence of the Croatian army and the Croatian authorities. End of quote. The accused approved of the JNA's new goal. He explained, quote, JNA is also Serbian, for it is our only army, and events have shown that the JNA too has only us. Therein, the JNA is ours. That is in Exhibit P1281 at page 3. However, the JNA faced a manpower shortage due to desertions and its own efforts to purge non-Serbs from its ranks. To fill the manpower gap, its leadership turned to the accused. As he testified...
Attendez, je demande à...
1 minute, please. May I ask the French booth to be in line with what Mr. Markuson is saying? It's difficult to hear you.
Would Your Honours like me to go back to the quote that I read out, or...
Oui, pour ceux...
Yes, for those who listen to you. Yes, please. Could you repeat the quote?
So, what I was saying was that the accused approved of the new goal of the JNA. And he said, quote, "The JNA is also Serbian, for it is our only army. And events have shown that the JNA too has only us. Therein, the JNA is ours." Exhibit P1281 at page 3. And I'll continue from here. However, the JNA faced a manpower shortage due to desertions and its own efforts to purge non-Serbs from its ranks. To fill the gaps, its leadership turned to the accused. As he testified in the Milosevic trial, several high-ranking JNA officers visited SIS headquarters to meet with him and discussing sending Sheshilevsky to the JNA because the JNA was having great problems mobilizing conscripts. The accused agreed. I refer to Exhibit P31 at pages 242 and 243. Witness Petkovic's evidence describes meetings he, as the chief of the war staff, had with Generals Domasetovic and Panic. Petkovic describes one incident in the summer or fall of 1991 in which he, on the accused's behalf, told Generals Domasetovic and Panic that the accused would stop sending volunteers to Croatia unless weapons and uniforms were provided to them more rapidly, which shows the accused control over the forces he was sending in to the JNA. The generals responded that they could not distribute weapons within Serbia, but weapons would be provided as soon as the Sheshilevsky left Serbia. The accused accepted this arrangement because he understood that Serbia was not officially involved in the conflict in Croatia. War staff member witness Stefanovic also confirmed SIS cooperation with the JNA General Staff and the provision of uniforms and weapons to Sheshilevsky at JNA barracks. This is found in Exhibit P634 at paragraph 21. Thanks to the accused's agreement with the JNA, thousands of Sheshilevsky were trained and equipped at JNA barracks in Belgrade and Novi Sad, as seen in Exhibits P857, paragraphs 38 to 41, in P30, in witness Rankic's evidence, in Exhibit P074 at paragraph 96, in witness Stoyanovic's evidence, in Exhibit P528 at paragraph 10, as well as in Exhibit P54 at page 2. Now, the accused has, in his brief, denied that he cooperated with Milosevic and that he could not possibly have been a JCE member. He has provided no evidentiary support for these propositions. And let us now look at how the accused himself, before he was indicted, explained how he actually cooperated with Milosevic and a number of other JCE members who we have already heard about today. This is from a video which have exhibit number P644 that we have been referring to a number of times. Let's hear the accused.
This was all done with Milosevic's knowledge, there is no doubt about that, and key people in the police with whom we cooperated at the time were Radmilo Bogdanovic, Michael Kertes and others. Franko Simatovic, also known as Frankie, who later commanded the Red Berets. From the General Staff, we mostly cooperated with General Domazetovic, who was the Deputy Chief of the General Staff, and also at the time the head of the Personnel Administration, if I remember correctly. There were also contacts with lower-ranking officers and so on, depending on the need and the situation. Our volunteers came to Belgrade, the barracks in Bubanj Potok. That is where we put on uniforms and where they were given weapons and buses to take them where they wanted. They were under the command of the JNA as soon as the JNA became involved in the fighting.
Your Honours, it is clear from the evidence that I have discussed so far that the accused cooperated closely with other JCE members to establish Serb fighting forces that could be deployed to create a Serb state. In June 1991, the JNA engaged in an offensive in Croatia. During its operations, it had overall command over Serb territorial defense and police forces in Croatia, units of the Serbian MUP, and, as we have seen, Šešeljevci, that the accused had willingly provided. In his final trial brief, the accused tries to minimize the contribution that he made to the campaign in Croatia by claiming that he was a mere recruitment sergeant for the JNA and that all he did was legal. This is incorrect. Even if the accused's act had been lawful, legal acts can constitute a significant contribution to a JCE. For this, I refer, for example, to the Krajisnik appeals judgment at paragraph 215. But moreover, the accused was not a recruiting sergeant for legitimate war. He was a fanatic propagandist contributing to an illegal enterprise. He and his fellow JCE members aimed at achieving their nationalistic goal through whatever means necessary, in particular through the commission of crime. Those crimes began in August 1991 with a persecutorial campaign carried out by Serb forces against the non-Serb population in Croatia. As this chamber has heard, the crimes committed during Serb forces' campaign in Croatia were inseparable from the campaign itself. JCE member Babic testified in the Milosevic trial that during the war in Croatia, the JNA engaged in combat operations in such a way that it forced not just Croatian armed forces, but the entire non-Serb population to withdraw. Even villages that posed no threat to the JNA were completely destroyed. I refer your honours to Exhibit P1137 at pages 92 and 93. At paragraph 92, at page 92, Babic testified, quote, "In this way, the JNA, as of August 1991, engaged in a war so that the territories that it captured would be left without any Croatian inhabitants, or very few of them. Houses and buildings were destroyed in combat operations, and subsequently, property was looted." End quote. The observers of the European monitoring mission that were in Croatia at the time described the brutal tactics used by the JNA. the JNA would first terrorize towns into surrendering with heavy artillery fire. Next, undisciplined irregulars, armed and backed by the JNA, would move in on foot and occupy the place. Finally, the JNA would assume overall control. These tactics were not only used against bigger towns like Vukovar, as we will hear, but, quote, throughout broad areas of territory in innumerable smaller villages, Croatian inhabitants are killed or forced to leave after their villages are bulldozed out of existence. They are simply and wantonly destroyed. That is from Exhibit P412 at page 16. The devastating consequences of this campaign are set out in the prosecution's closing brief at paragraphs 108 to 116. Here, I will just refer your honors to Exhibit P632 at pages 76 to 80, which shows that over 200,000 Croatian civilians were expelled from their homes. And not only did the accused send thousands of Cherchelyevsky to participate in this brutal persecutorial campaign. His Cherchelyevsky committed numerous crimes and quickly became so notorious for their brutality and crimes that they were known to international organizations. Helsinki Watch reported in an open letter to Milosevic and other Serbian leaders that is found in the record as Exhibit P183. It reported that, quote, the Serbian government has, in some cases, supported the formation of at least 3 paramilitary groups in Serbia which operate in Croatia. What appears to be the most brutal of these groups is led by Vojislav Šešelj, the leader of the Serbian Radical Party and the Serbian Chetnik movement. End quote. And that is at page 2 of the exhibit. Indeed, the evidence in this case has proven that the accused Cherchelyevsky committed many crimes charged in the indictment. Your Honours, the evidence that I have discussed, and much more evidence discussed in the prosecution's closing brief, proves the criminal nature of the JCE members' common purpose beyond a reasonable doubt. At least by August 1991, the common purpose to pursue Greater Serbia, to use the accused terminology, included a persecutorial campaign against non-Serbs and the commission of the crimes charged in the indictment. As we will now see, the JCE members soon extended their persecutorial campaign to Bosnia and Herzegovina. While the persecutorial campaign in Croatia was still at its height, I don't know if your honors are wondering whether we should take a break. We could take a break here as we're moving to another area, or I can continue until we hit the 1 hour and a half mark. Yeah. It's at your disposal.
I think it's probably better to have a break. You can then address this other subject. We shall have our traditional 20-minute break. Mr. Šešelj, in the event that you do not feel well, we can make a break or have a break when you so wish. Otherwise, we sit for an hour and a half and then have a 20-minute break.
Mr. President, I expect Mr. Markussen will feel unwell before I do. Why do you think I would always feel unwell? You could feel unwell too, by the way.
Nous allons faire donc...
Fine, we shall have a 20-minute break and resume in 20 minutes' time.
All rise, we will wait.